If you want to know what settings actually apply to your machine and your user account and what GPOs apply, GPresult is what we use. So it'll give me that ability to verify every GPO by name that's affecting my machine or my user account, and it will show individual settings that are actually being applied. This we just need to look at in the interface to fully appreciate it. Back on my host machine here, I'm going to go to my domain controller. So I'm on RTS-DC1. I'm going to pull up the PowerShell console again. Now you can do this in PowerShell or the command prompt, same syntax. I'm going to make this slightly larger, the font size that is. I'm going to type GPresult /?. At the bottom, you see a few examples. I can run this GPresult /R. That's pretty common. And the GPresult /H, which actually generates an HTML file. That's pretty common as well. Creates a web page with all your settings in it. And you could also specify a specific user. So if I wanted this for not myself, but some other user, I could run GPresult /user, the username. You could also specify this for a specific computer. If you wanted this ultimately scoped out to just show you a computer level configuration for some computer in your domain. But the common two are the /R and /H. Well, to take a look at those, I'm going to run GPresult /R. I'm actually going to click that so it's a little easier to see now it's in full screen. Now, if we scroll back up, we get pretty basic information, but it's useful. So this is where we executed the command, GPresult /R. Well, here I can see this RSOT data. That stands for resultant set of policy. So I know this is for the administrator user account logged on to RTS-DC1. So username, computer name. I can see information about the OS version, about the local user profile. I can see information related to the computer setting. So that's my RTS-DC1. This is really the path to the account. It's in the domain controller's OU. I can see the group policies that apply to the computer account, the default domain controller's policy, the default domain policy. I can see the local group policy is not applying because it's actually empty, so it gets filtered out because there are no settings defined in it. I can see that the computer is a member of all these groups. Now, we don't normally think of a computer as being a member of a group, but it is a member of several groups by default. Then it gives me the same equivalent type setting for user. I can see that I'm logged in as administrator. My administrator account is in that users container in the rtsnetworking.com domain. I can see the last time group policy was applied. I can see right now we have no settings at a user level actually applying to my user account. Well, let's make one quick change. I'm actually going to go to my default domain policy. Now, normally you don't edit the default domain policy. Normally you create additional policies. You know, as a best practice, we won't actually edit the default domain policy. I'm going to create a new policy and link it here. And I'm going to call it user settings. And I'm just going to edit this policy. And I'm going to go to preferences here. And for preferences, I'm going to go to start menu and I'm going to define a new start menu item. I'm going to say on the start menu, I'm going to go down to administrative tools. System administrative tools. Right now it says do not display this item. I'm going to say display on the all programs menu and the start menu. So I'm going to click OK. Now on my system here, actually I'm going to go back to PowerShell. And the first thing I'm going to do to make sure that setting applies is actually type GP update. Now, we could use GP update / force out of an abundance of caution, but GP update's going to work just the same for what we're doing. So computer policy is updated and user policy is updated. Now, what I'm going to do, notice my profile path here is C users administrator. I want to create an HTML file that has all my settings in it. But when you do that, it actually saves it to the location that your PowerShell prompt or the command prompt is actually pointing. So what I'm going to do is type cd desktop. And you'll see that changed the directory to be C users administrator desktop. So what's going to happen, if we minimize some of these many screens I have open, on my desktop here, it's actually going to create a web page when we run our command. And the command I want to run is actually, put that in full screen there so it stops scrolling down, GPresult /H. You can name this whatever you want. This is going to be the name of the web page. I'm just going to name it GP settings, but it must end with HTML. So GPresult /H GP settings.html. Well, I'm going to hit enter for that, and we'll minimize that. Takes just a moment, but I wanted to be here so you could see that pop up. When that command finished executing, the GPresult /H, this is what it created. So a few seconds after you run it, a web page just pops up in that location. Now I'm just going to open that GP settings. And again, you can name it whatever you want. Just make sure it ends with HTML. I'm going to click allow this blocked content here. And I'm going to select this show all over on the top right. What I can see now is this is the settings for RTS networking /administrator on RTS networking RTS-DC1. So the setting for this user account logged on to this computer. I can see the last time group policy was refreshed. Now we saw that with the GP result /R as well, but timestamp for computer and user policy, no errors were detected either time. Some information related to the computer account shows up there. I can see the individual components of group policy, the infrastructure, settings that needed to write to the registry, security settings, all those were successful. This is where it gets to be pretty incredible. I can see all these settings apply. There's an option to change the system time, or option, I should say it's a setting. Change the system time. This is the value for that setting, but I can see the default domain controllers actually applied that setting. So not only do you know the name of a GPO that applies, you can see every single setting that's enabled, the name of the GPO that actually applied that setting, and what the value for that setting is actually set to. Well, if we scroll down a bit, because most of these are just default settings, but if I keep scrolling, we also talked about security filtering. I can see, when I look at any of these policies, I can see security filter is the authenticated users group. So this is not being filtered to a specific group. I can see that this is not an enforced policy. It says enforced no. So it gives you even that level of detailed information. If we keep scrolling, I can see my control panel settings. Start menu, at least Windows Vista. That's the setting I just defined. This is everything in that preference. But if we keep scrolling down, System Administrative Tools was the setting I modified. Display on all programs and the start menu. So I can see exactly every setting that's defined. Very user-friendly. And this is the winning GPO named User Settings. That is very awesome. It takes all the guesswork out of this of trying to figure out, well, what policy applied what setting. You can just run this GPresult /H and you can see every setting, every GPO that applied each of those settings.